Welcome. This is what is happening on the Sun today, the 16th of October 2011. There's been a change in the nature of the C flares. They've gone from a myriad of tiny small C1 flares to mid-level C flares. But before we get to why that's happening, let's deal with the trivia question. Here again I've blown up a picture and your job is to guess here what it is. Upon reflection I suspect you will see that it is something you're quite familiar with. The answer will be given at the end. We have had 12 C flares since this time yesterday, and the X-ray background has been steadily increasing. So let's take a look at the active regions and see what is responsible for this change. Currently we have 10 officially numbered regions on the disk. I've changed this illustration slightly from previous days. I've taken out the percentage change in the region and replaced it with the magnetic type of the region, which is much more important for forecasting flares. An alpha region is a simple unipolar spot. A beta region is a region with multiple spots of different polarity. A gamma region is a region with lots of spots of different polarity all mixed up, and a delta region is a region which has two sunspots of different polarities in the same penumbra, so are very likely to flare. At the moment we have just alpha and beta regions on the disk. Regions 12, 13, 18, 20 and 22 are all near the west limb and are very difficult to say what's going on with those, so we'll move straight to region 13, 14. Now this region doesn't seem to have changed a great deal in the last 24 hours. It seems to have a few more satellite spots, but they seem to be a bit weaker than yesterday's. Immediately below it is region 1319, which has produced all the flares, and indeed has produced 8 more C flares in the last 24 hours. It has shown quite remarkable growth, particularly in the leader part of the region. Below that is region 1316. Below that is region 1316, which has produced one of the C flares in the last 24 hours, but doesn't seem to have changed a great deal, except for possibly a little in the trailer region. Now for region 1321 I'm quite confused. NOAA gives its coordinates at north 13, east 52, and there's nothing at that coordinate, so unless it came up late last night and then died away almost immediately, I don't see where that region is. There's a region approximately in the right place in the southern hemisphere, so they might have mistyped the coordinates, or there's one much closer to the limb in the northeast. It looks too far north and too far east to have those coordinates. I'm sure NOAA will clear up that mystery tomorrow. Lastly, we have a new picture of the far side of the Sun using helioseismology from the HMI instrument on the Solar Dynamics Observatory, and you can see all those spurious spots have disappeared and we have a much more reasonable looking picture. Now let's take a look at the continuous evolution of these regions using the sunspot and magnetic movies from the HMI instrument on the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Here I'd like you to particularly concentrate on the development of region 1319 in the last 24 hours or so. We also have a new region coming over the northeast limb, but it's not a very big one and I don't think it's going to amount to much. We have very little AIA data, or for that matter stereo data for this particular time period. Let's take a look at the stereo B data and see what the regions behind the northeast limb are doing and what we have to look forward to in the next week. From the SOHO coronagraph data we can see that the parade of coronal mass ejections has continued, if not intensified. Most of them are from behind the northeast limb, however there's a couple off of the west limb. The solar wind temperatures remained about 100,000 degrees and the velocity has been well above 400 kilometers per second for the most of the last day. However, the densities bounced around all over the place from a few protons per cubic centimetre to less than 1. The high energy electron flux at geosynchronous altitudes has dipped, and as we've had no large flares, we still have not had a proton event. The auroral arc seems to be a bit more active than it was yesterday, and this is in keeping with the slightly increased average level of the KP index. However, NOAA still has not issued any space weather alerts in the last 24 hours. So in summary then, the X-ray background is at the B7 level, the sunspot number has risen to 166, the radiant sun intensity has increased to 138, the solar wind speed is near constant at 450 km per second with a density of about 2 protons per cubic centimetre, and geospace conditions are rated as quiet. My forecast for the next 24 hours is that C flares are almost certain, M flares are possible, though I still think that X-ray flares are unlikely. The sunspot number will remain high, the chances of getting coronal mass ejections is highly probable, the solar wind speed will remain high, but the chances of getting a major geomagnetic storm in the next 24 hours is quite low. From the composite coronal picture we can see that the first part of this string of regions is onto the disk now. The answer to the trivia question is star trails. These star trails are reflected off of a multi-segmented mirror from a telescope at an observatory in Hawaii. So that's it for today. Keep safe. Bye for now.